National conservative Karol Nawrocki has won Poland's presidential election, and he was backed by President Trump. Nawrocki took just under 51% of the vote. His liberal pro-European mayor opponent, Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski, gained about 49% of the vote. For more on this, Charles Kupchan joins us now. Kupchan, he is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and a professor of international affairs at Georgetown University. Professor, great to have you with us. What does Nawrocki's win mean now for Poland's relationship and membership in the EU and NATO?
Well, I would say it means good things for NATO in the sense that Nawrocki is somebody who is supportive of NATO, supportive of more arms to Ukraine, not pro-Russian like many far-right politicians in Europe are. I would say it doesn't mean good things for Poland's relationship with the EU, because far-right parties in Europe are generally very nationalistic, very opposed to giving over sovereignty, political power to authorities in Brussels. So good news for NATO, less good news for the EU, generally good news for relationships between Warsaw and the United States, because as you just said, the Trump team backed this person.
And so what does that then mean both domestically and for the U.S.? Because Nawrocki's opponent is an ally of Poland's prime minister, Nawrocki not so much. So what dynamic is now emerging?
You know, it means polarization and it means potential paralysis, because the government of Poland is centrist, center-left. It is pro-EU, and it is trying to undo a lot of the constraints on the courts and on liberal democracy that the previous right-wing government put in place. But they can't do that with a president in office who doesn't agree with them. And that's because the president in Poland, although largely ceremonial, can veto legislation and can send legislation to the Constitutional Court where it gets stalled. So I think we're looking at a period of considerable political contestation in Poland. It's going to be a tough country to govern.
And what's interesting is that Nawrocki's win, percentage-wise, is very similar to what happened here in the U.S. during the last presidential election. It was so close, and this race really seems to come down to ideology. So taking everything that you've laid out, what does all of this mean for Poland's kind of short-term future under its new president?
Well, you know, what we're looking at here is the erosion of the political center in almost every Western democracy. It's what's happened in the United States. It's what's happening in Europe, not just in Poland. We see it in Romania. We see it in France. We see it in Germany. Our electorates right now are divided, and that gums up the democratic process. And in many respects, Nawrocki stands for a lot of the more right-wing agenda that you see in the United States with the MAGA movement, socially conservative, pro-abortion, pro-diversity, equity, anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion. So a lot of the culture wars that Americans are fighting about, they're the same culture wars that Poles are fighting about. And again, it's a more educated, more prosperous, urban population that veers to the left, the more rural, conservative, less educated population that supported Nawrocki.
And you said pro-abortion. I'm sure you meant anti-abortion on behalf of Nawrocki as well.
Thank you for catching that.
But fascinating to see the similarities in Poland to the U.S. Charles Kupchan, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you.